Children of the Morgue is the eighth full-length album from Deceased. This is one of the United States' original death metal bands. It's a very storied history. They've got a lot of releases over the years. They're very well known. You kind of know what you're getting into when you pick up a Deceased record. It's going to be basically heavy metal through the lens of 80s death metal with some punk influences. I mean, I think it's the best way to say it. And over the years, they've incorporated more interest in heavy metal, more epic heavy metal touch to it. And certainly thrash metal is a big, important part of what influenced the band in the first place. You can hear it on Luck of the Corpse back in 1991, and you can hear the heavy metal surging into the band beyond Fearless Undead Machines. It was kind of their breakthrough record in terms of knowing who they were. And I think a lot of the best qualities of Fearless Undead Machines really works into this record the same way it did As a Weird Travel On. I've said before in the past, As a Weird Travel On back in like 2005 or so, that was my favorite Deceased record to date. I thought it just had a ton of energy. They were pushing it out, a lot of thrash in there, a lot of heavy metal. It was something where you went in expecting death metal and you got out of it getting a lot more. It's their own sound, and it was pretty cool at the time. I sort of liken the effect to when Root came back and kind of put out a couple of metal records in the early 2000s. They weren't going for avant-garde. They were going for a lot of classic influences. And the sound is not the same here, of course not. But Deceased have certainly gotten it right more often than they've gotten it wrong by just being themselves. And I think that's kind of what's most interesting about this record. Well, first we'll cut into a song, and then I'll kind of get into more of the minutia of how I felt about this record.
Children, all children, all children. Life, there is no reward. Children, all children, just children.
So really the short version of this review is that it's classic Deceased. There's a little bit more thrash. There's plenty of the sort of metal punk side of the band seeping through their sound, and it all kind of works together for a more energetic and a more epic record. Most of the songs on here are pretty long. They're over about 7 minutes, and there's a couple of shorter 4 or 5 minute songs that get to the point quicker, and all of them are more thrash metal oriented. And I think if you were to call this an 80s death metal influenced record, you'd kind of be missing the distinction between what is actually closer to, I would say, like Beat the Bastards, Discharge, and even Voivod and stuff like that has always influenced their sound. I hear some of those nuances in there, and they translate to thrash metal by way of the sound of Deceased, and there's a lot of heavy metal throughout. So I'm going to keep repeating that combination of genres there, subgenres, because that really is kind of what is at the heart of my interest in Deceased, is that they make all these things work together with their own voice. And it only gets stronger over the years, and some records are better than others. I think this is better than Ghostly White for my taste, but I'm still enthusiastic about both because I think they've continued to kind of raise the bar beyond Fearless Undead Machines for this sound, and this is a great example of it. As always, I think King Fowley's vocals they're not hit or miss for me. It's more that sometimes he just keeps going and puts too much into a song where he's got so much to say, where it just maybe just let the instrumentals play out for a little bit longer before you cut back in. And I think that's kind of where I lost my way in Ghostly White, and where they've kind of improved on this record by returning to the concept album for the first time since 1997. I feel like this really fits and works for this band because they've always been very narrative. The vocalist is such an exuberant character who has a lot to put out that I think it's a good container for all that energy, because it provides a space for a ton of riffs, and it provides a space for a ton of vocals, and those things work together in those longer pieces. So great work on the band's part. You know, some could say they've done better, some could say they've done worse. I think this is just Deceased at their best, really, is when they're focusing on a record like this. And you can feel the work they put into the guitar work especially. And overall, I think this is one of their sharper records. Probably up there in my top 4 or so, I would say, top 3 or 4, and just a solid record for anyone who's interested in kind of a unique combination between like what death thrash was and is, and again epic heavy metal and metal punk, and how all those things really do work together over the ages and create this unique Deceased metal that they make. So check it out for yourself, see what you think, and read my review for more of my thoughts.
Dreams inside, I'll pass you by now.